With the hype escalating as Godzilla vs. Kong nears its release, I started thinking back to where the Monsterverse began. I still remember being young and naive, scrolling through the internet seeing news of a new American Godzilla film. For the longest time, what was believed to be Godzilla 2012 seemed like a fantasy. But finally, when that first trailer dropped for it back in December of 2013, all at once, my excitement was back.
Your courage will never be more needed than it is today.
The film I had wanted to see for so long was real, and it was looking to be a massive hit. So in this video, we're going to look back at Godzilla 2014 by Gareth Edwards, and see if it truly matched up to the monstrous expectations. This movie honestly boasts a fairly strong cast, with Bryan Cranston and Ken Watanabe being major highlights. But personally, I even enjoyed Aaron Taylor Johnson as the lead, despite his tendency to just be there. That being said, I'd be remiss to not mention Elizabeth Olsen as well, who certainly held her own. Personally, I am really fond of David Strathairn as Admiral Stenz. All of his scenes genuinely bring a smile to my face.
The world still thinks this was an earthquake, and it would be preferable that that remains so. Before we lost sight of it, it was headed east across the Pacific and had emitted enough EMP disruption to create havoc with our radar and satellite feeds and reduce us, for the moment, to a strictly visual pursuit. I emphasize for the moment.
The story is consistently a thrill ride, but that being said, there are, of course, slower points in the film. But in my opinion, they don't overstay their welcome. One of the most common complaints is Bryan Cranston dying very early on, depriving the rest of the movie his presence. However, I think that despite this, the film moves along at a good pace, and like I said earlier, I personally found Ford Brody to be likable as a protagonist. They certainly do tease Godzilla for a long time in this film. Every time you get a bit of him on screen, they snatch it away, leaving you wanting more. I've heard stories of G fans not appreciating this, or even being infuriated, but I think this was a genius move. Whenever he is on screen, it is a spectacle to see Godzilla, and the final payoff is so satisfying, especially the kills Godzilla pulls off against the Mutos. A bonus for me while rewatching this is that I now realize how accurate the radio etiquette is, as well as the military scenes in general. Admittedly, there are certainly some plot conveniences here, particularly the ending. That nuclear bomb did not have near enough time to get out of range. I mean seriously, San Francisco should be gone for sure. And I do often see this film being criticized by Godzilla fans for not having a lot of Godzilla in it, boring human characters, but personally I feel those criticisms are true of most of the Toho films as well. But as a whole, I think the plot is more than serviceable, and I found plenty to enjoy here. Moving on, an obvious strong suit in this film is the cinematography. Edwards provides plenty of brilliant shots and does a great job of establishing a sense of scale. These kaiju feel huge, and the special effects certainly backs that up. Honestly, this is some of the best CGI I can think of in recent times. The opening reel has a few shots that make me question every time if it's not just real footage of a giant creature from the 50s. That being said, personally I find the design of the Mutos to be pretty bland, but that just comes up to preference. Godzilla's design, on the other hand, is one of the best in the series and certainly is the most believable. Moving on to the soundtrack, I am not great at analyzing music by any means, but there isn't one track that disappoints. It is full of life and perfectly captures the mood of this film. Some people complained about the lack of the classic Godzilla theme, but I think that they certainly make up for it here with the opening theme. All being accounted for, I genuinely love this film. It was the first Godzilla film I saw in theaters, so it holds a special place in my heart. But looking at it critically, I would give it a solid 8 out of 10, a great film on its own merits, with my personal enjoyment boosting it to an assisted score of 9.5 out of 10 for me. I definitely recommend watching it before seeing the upcoming Godzilla vs. Kong film, and as a good monster flick in general.